Well, here we are back on Let's Talk. And
Yes.
hi,
Hello.
Julio.
How are
Uh,
you,
for those
Karen?
of
How are you,
hi,
Janelle?
Janelle, those of you
Hello.
who haven't seen us talking before, I'll quickly have everyone introduce themselves. So, want to start, Janelle?
Sure. Janelle Rep, Performance Reps Northwest. We are a local food service equipment rep group here in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, Hawaii.
Julio Valera. I operate Latin Advantage, and Julio knows it's a consulting firm for small businesses in the state of Oregon. I've consulted restaurants of all types in the state where I help and advise on what's the best way of operating and opening a new business.
Fabulous. And I'm Karen Malody, owner of Culinary Options, located in Portland. I work nationally and I specialize in operations, concept, and menu development. We're here to talk today because we've all been talking, the three of us, now that so many restaurants have reopened, and we've all had some eating out experiences that in some cases unfortunately reflected some of our fears all along, which is the fact that mostly restaurants are interpreting the reopening guidelines in their own manner. So you don't go to one restaurant and necessarily have the same protocols in place that you do in others. So what we want to emphasize today, again, and I know everyone's sick of hearing it, is please communicate, communicate, communicate. Even to the extent that if you call people in advance who've made reservations, when they call, if they've called, make sure to tell them, bring your mask, we'll ask you to sanitize your hand, whatever your protocol is, communicate it so people can feel prepared. You can manage their expectations. I know, Janelle, you just recently had a hotel experience that
I did.
and the website, by the way, had not been updated. And we've talked about this all along. Use your social media and your website. So what happened, Janelle?
Yeah, essentially checked in and there was no clear expectations, of how different the travel experience was going to be, and that literally there were no amenities. So all of the reasons you picked that hotel, those things were no longer offered, from the breakfast to be able to sit in the lobby, sit out by the pool, use the gym. And I think if they would just have clearly communicated that before we arrived, it would have been a totally different experience.
You had a similar experience, if I heard you correctly, finally finding a restaurant, and this was in Southern California, correct?
Correct.
Finding a restaurant that was open, and this is a great example of those of you who may be choosing to not have menus at all because you do not want to sanitize them after every use, or you don't want to print them and be throwing them away. This restaurant had an interesting approach, but didn't tell you.
We're seated, and then the hostess walked away. We sat there for about 10 minutes, and meantime, I'm kind of explaining to my family, like, hey, this is a new experience. Let's be patient. We'll get some direction. And then finally looked down, and on the middle of the table was a flyer. And if you read the flyer, it said, scan this QR code to order online, but it never said this is how you access your menu. So, but then you have to remember that I was there with 4 people that were not technically adept. So helping them, understand how to access that menu. And then once they accessed it, they were adding the food to the cart because they thought they had to order online. So just a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. And then there's an embarrassment that happens alongside of that as well, because you want to do things the right way.
Right.
Direction.
That's also a very different experience for any of us, quite honestly, to have in a sit-down environment, to have to use our phones to order. So again, we've talked about this, have people in the front of the house who are visibly sanitizing, helping people understand the social distancing protocols. If it's a QSR code approach, help people be an ambassador, help people get comfortable. And we just want to emphasize again, and our protocols will be available to you, but very simply, the social distancing is key. whether you have floor decals or if you have someone in the front of the house, literally walking people through to assure social distancing. Barriers, if you're going that way, mostly I've seen people just separating tables so you don't have to think and not see plexiglass barriers, but some are doing that. Continuous disinfecting, I would say that maybe has been the weakest link I've observed so far, is I'm not seeing tables necessarily being wiped in between use. So make sure you're doing that. And very importantly, but not all customers would even realize this, make sure your employees are washing their hands. It's recommended every 30 minutes.
Right.
It isn't a mandate, but it really shows good sense. Julio, I know that you've been working with some of your clients who've actually had someone on staff test positive and have symptoms. So why don't you walk us through, what are you supposed to do?
It's a challenge because, most operators are like, I'm just happy that I can open. I'm just happy that customers are coming. I set protocols and I have certain things that I'm trying to do. And I know that even this point of what do you do when COVID comes into your staff? As many operators are not even approaching it or considering it or even thinking that it will happen. But the truth of the reality is it will happen somehow. So it's best to say, when it happens, this is how I will approach it. So I had a particular client that one of his dishwashers tested positive. But by the time he found out he was tested positive, he had already worked in the restaurant 2 or 3 days previous to his testing. So my client, the operator, calls me and he goes, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me call the health department to find out what the protocol is. And sure enough, the health department was extremely, extremely helpful. I was very, very happy that they really gave us a lot of guidance. Have to quarantine that employee that got tested positive, but you also have to test your entire staff because you have to know how many of them got spread. And if your spread is more than 10% or even, any really, in this particular situation, 20% of the staff tested positive after the employee was found. So had to be forced to close. So the bottom line,
after they've reopened.
Right, exactly. He had been open literally for 3 weeks and then he had to reclose. And because the chef, who is the owner's wife, she was very panicking because she's like, if I'm testing positive, then I'm not going to be able to cook any of the food. The bottom line about what happens if one of your employees tested positive is address it. Know the certain protocols. We have a list of steps that I experience with several of my clients that we're going to put it together on the website so that everyone can see. Every county is a little bit different. This particular county in Lincoln County was very, very helpful. Because they have an outbreak in the county. So they already had specific steps to take. Okay. So I would say, have a plan. When it happens, what are you going to do? Who is going to be your alternative people that is going to help you reopen? And who are your key employees? If it is you who's cooking, or if it's you who, it's not a matter of will it, it's a matter of when it will happen. And again, I apologize to even bringing it up to operators because operators don't want to know. Nobody wants to really say this is it. But what we're seeing is that it will.
Come to mind, Julio, as I listen to you. One is really use your health department contact as a resource, and a collaborator and a friend. Don't hide your head in the sand because it won't do anyone any good ultimately. The other thing, just curious, people might want to know this, Julio. If someone tests positive and the entire staff then needs to be tested, is that free? Where do they go? What do they do?
Well, the process for this particular situation, the process was we contacted the health department, and the health department basically told me and the operator, bring all of your staff to get tested for free. And I'm like, to which clinic? And she goes, don't worry about it. I'm going to have one of the nurses from the clinic contact the business. So the nurse from the clinic contact the business, contact me and said, when can the staff come? And so it was between the health department and the particular clinic, they worked jointly to inform us. So that's why having connection with the health department when this happens is because the health department knows which is the clinic or which is the best place that will make those testing right away, because you don't want to wait. You want to know, the sooner you know, the better it is to know.
And any restaurants need to close again, sadly. Again, communicate, tell the story, don't be ashamed.
Right.
Just explain what you did, that you did the right thing. And I really, again, I just can't say it enough. Everything you're doing, everything that you are doing in your operation to help people be comfortable and feel safe, let them know, make it visible, use your social media, put it on your website. If someone's going to make a reservation through a website or mobile ordering, the information about what to expect actually should be on those. But we do want to keep going with Let's Talk, and we will. Yes. And Janelle, any final words?
I think the main takeaway for me would be, if you're on top of this or you have a plan, you can control the narrative in the event that this happens to you.
Exactly. Right. Great point. Julio, any final?
That communication comes in so many ways. I know that there's a lot of cards and posts and pieces of information that are posted throughout the restaurants. Just remember that not everybody has the time or the patience to read, a big sheet. So if you can make an infographic, if you can have little arrows, that's another form of communication that I think goes a long way, more so than saying I just posted a card and that all my protocols are set there. So
excellent. And my last bit would be, please make sure you're walking through various scenarios with your staff. There are a lot of people coming to restaurants who are very touchy one way or another, and a lot of employees are being confronted by upset customers. And it's important that the employee feels comfortable dealing with that. And role playing and scenario training is really important. So be well, take care, do the right thing, and we'll talk next time.